Hello friends! We're counting down to the holidays with 12 days of Christmas drawings. The goal of this mini-series is to kickstart a daily habit of painting in Procreate in a fun, low-pressure way. So I invite you to grab your pencil, get comfy, and draw along with me. Today we're going to be painting a cup of holiday hot chocolate. Let's first create a new canvas, and I have mine set to 4,250 pixels wide by 3,200 pixels tall at 300 dpi. These are essentially the dimensions of the iPad, so the canvas should fit your screen. If you don't have enough storage on your iPad for a file this large, you can use the pre-formatted screen-sized canvas, which will give you the same aspect ratio, but at a smaller size and lower resolution. Here's a glimpse at the sketching process for this drawing. I used the 6B pencil brush from the classic brush library. Now you're welcome to draw this illustration in your own style, or you can skip the sketching process altogether because I created a template for you which you can use as a guide for the painting. There's a link in the description for the free download. And I just want to mention, with the downloads, you'll also receive a color palette which you can import directly into Procreate. The palette includes the base colors that I'll be using, but you'll often see me incorporate other colors as well. Feel free to add to or adjust the base palette as you see fit. First, let's choose our brush. Open up the Procreate brush library, go to the charcoal set, and today we're going to be using Pipeline. Choose the spruce green from the palette, and you're going to create a new layer and drag it below the template or sketch layer. As you can see, I've already reduced the opacity on the sketch. I've got my brush size set to about 20%, and we're going to start by outlining the mug. By the way, if you'll be using the drawing template, you can watch the last video for a step-by-step guide on how to import and use that file. It will help to drop the brush size down to outline the foot of the mug since this area is fairly small. Then increase slightly to fill. Finish off the shape with a line at the top, then increase the brush size quite a bit so that you can fill the entire shape with color. I'm just going back and forth with my strokes and trying not to overlap the lines too much because I want that texture to show through. I'm also adding a slight curve to my strokes to help visually indicate the roundness of the mug. Now create a new layer, make that layer a clipping mask. Tap on the color disc and drag the circle down and to the right to make a slightly darker version of the green we were just using. Set the brush size to 100% and add a couple wide strokes along the right side and then curving along the bottom of the mug for shadow. You can make the brush smaller to finish off that shape if you need to. Create a new layer, drag it below the mug shape, and switch back to the original version of the spruce green. Now let's paint the handle. When working with curves, it's easier to approach it one section at a time. So start with one short section, then turn your canvas so your hand is in a comfortable position, and draw the next section. Make sure to overlap the last section so the curve flows seamlessly. Okay, let's turn the sketch or template layer off for a second. Add a new layer, make it a clipping mask, then choose the dark holly green from the palette. Add a line of shadow along the underside of the handle and where it connects to the body of the mug. Do the same here as well. I'll go back to the clipping mask layer above the mug. We're going to add that same dark green to the foot of the mug since part of that would also be in shadow. All right, create a new layer above the mug layers and choose a light creamy color for the foam. Outline the entire shape of the foam and make sure the shape falls slightly below the lip of the mug. You don't want a perfectly straight line at the top. When you're done with the outline, increase the brush size and fill the shape. Pick a color that's slightly darker, and we're going to add the details to the foam. Actually, let's do this on a clipping mask. So create a new layer above the foam and make it a clipping mask. Now we can add that darker color along the bottom edge of each section, so it looks like there are several layers of swirling foam. I'm just going to turn off my sketch for a second so it's easier to see what I'm doing in this section. Now let's add a few highlights. Go back to the color you used for the foam and create a lighter version of that color. You're just going to add a few strokes of highlight along the top of each of those sections. Keep your strokes light and loose and follow the curves of those foam layers. Turn the sketch back on, create a new layer above the foam, choose the red from the palette, and drop your brush down to a fairly small size. Let's paint the peppermint sticks. Start by drawing 2 lines, and if you hold your pencil down, it will snap to a straight line. Then add a curve at the top to join them. For this one, you can add a diagonal line at the bottom. Now you can fill the shape with color. Do the same for the second peppermint stick. All right, now turn off the sketch or template layer, reduce the opacity on the peppermint layer, then choose the eraser tool in the same brush. Erase the part of that second peppermint stick that falls in front of the foam. For the first peppermint stick, erase the bottom section, following the curve of the foam so it looks like the stick is tucked inside the foam. Now let's turn the opacity back up on that layer, create a new layer above it, and make the new layer a clipping mask. Then switch the color to white. Add curved stripes down the length of each peppermint stick. Tap on the layer with the red sticks, create a new layer above it, and since this new layer is below the first clipping mask, it will automatically become a clipping mask as well. We're also going to choose the deep red from the palette and use that color to add a line of shadow along the right side of each stick. Now choose a lighter version of the red to add a highlight on the opposite side. Back to the Layers panel, tap on the layer with the stripes and turn on Alpha Lock. Choose the Icy Blue from the palette, and we'll use that to create a line of shadow on the stripes as well. Turn the sketch or template layer back on, create a new layer at the top of the stack, and choose the Coral from the palette. Let's paint those little berries. Now create a new layer above that. Make the new layer a clipping mask and choose the red. Add this darker color along one edge of each berry to create some separation. Now choose the deep red and add a second line of shadow even closer to the edge. Go back to the coral color and make a lighter version. Use that to add a highlight to each berry. Create a new layer below the berries and choose the mint green from the palette. We're going to paint those holly leaves. This is pretty straightforward. We're just following the shape to outline and then increase the brush size to fill. Do the same for each leaf. Now let's create a new layer above the leaves and make it a clipping mask. Create a darker version of that green, and let's add a little texture to those leaves with a few light strokes in this darker color. If you want to, you can also add a few lines in an even darker green. I'm using the spruce green from the palette here. Okay, let's paint the stars. Make sure your brush size is really small. I've got mine set to about 2%, and I'm using the mint green from the palette. I'm also drawing these on a separate layer. You're just gonna follow the shape by drawing the cross shape first and then attaching each line with a curve. Okay, last few details. Choose the holly green from the palette and create a layer right below the leaves. Let's add a little shadow along the right side of each leaf and a little under the berries as well. Then go down to your mug layers and create a new clipping mask above the mug. Now we can add a little shadow right under that foam. Choose the same green we used for the mug and create a lighter version of that color. We can use that to add a highlight on the left side of the mug and along the top of the handle. I'm doing this on a new layer, by the way. Scroll to the bottom of your layer stack and create a new layer. Using the icy blue from the palette, let's add a shadow below the mug. And I think for one final touch, I'm going to add a few more stars. And there's our holiday hot chocolate. I hope you had fun with this process, and I hope you'll join me for all 12 days of this holiday painting practice. There's a link in the description for where you can download the free drawing templates and get a peek at all the drawings we'll be creating for the next 12 days. I've also added a link to the 12 Days of Christmas Drawings playlist so you can easily find all the content in this series. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.